I'm a bad guy sometimes, and I did a lot of bad things. I wanted to be forgiven. You know, I want to change my life. I want to live a different life now. I want to live my sober life. I don't want to die. I'm on the verge of dying because I'm a vicious alcoholic, and I haven't took drugs in 6 days, and for me that's a miracle. I've been lying to everybody else and think I was sober, but I'm not. This is my 6th day. I'm never going to use again.
Mike, first of all, we're here in Verona. Where do you and I find vegan food around here?
Well, listen, you have to bring it with you. Yeah. You know, of course, when becoming a vegan, you have to you have to travel with your food because that's the problem. They're not going to have food in most countries. They're not going to eat that stuff.
I stocked up on Cliff Bars and fruit at the gas station.
So, like, for me, YouTube is really a selfish endeavor for me. I get a lot from doing it, and I do love hearing other people's opinions and whatnot. That's one of the main reasons why I'm doing it. But to say that I'm doing this because I'm trying to spread some greater message or whatever, or this is ultimately going to be so beneficial for the animals, I don't know. It is quite selfish for me. Yeah. I think if people were honest with themselves, a lot of people would say that it is selfish for them as well. But.
Sure, right. But for me, I express that selfish the way I say, like, I want to make friends. That's a form of selfishness. You know, it's not evil, but I say, no, I want to have a circle of friends because I know what it's like to leave Cambodia and have no friends. You know what I mean? It's not because I'm a jerk. It's because I left Cambodia. So I lost everything I had that way in terms of friendship. But that is selfish. And that's been a source of conflict between me and other YouTubers everywhere. It's like where I've had to say to people, no, look, I'm just trying to make friends. I'm trying to make friends who are going to last the rest of my life. And you know, friends based on something meaningful you have in common. So you involved in music. Are you a musician? Do you sing, or do you sing on those lines? I'm just asking because you mentioned it was a big deal.
Oh, no.
Do you DJ? Turntables?
Yeah, club every Saturday night. DJ. No. I'm just a consumer of music.
I once DJ'd here in China. I could do it again probably if I wanted to. I'd probably do gigs here as a DJ.
In Thailand when we go.
Oh, right. It's not me. It's not me. Yeah.
What's your DJ name?
I guess it's got to be à-bas-le-ciel now. I guess there's no point in having another name as a DJ. I've got to trade on the little bit of fame I've got to do gigs. No, but it's just because of the knowledge I have of rap music. It was the only reason I DJ'd it. It was a big hit though. Anyway.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Looking forward to hearing your DJing. So, I look at the Green Party. Like I was at this event.
I was just gonna mention the Green Party. Go on, yeah. Right.
Yeah, I was at this party last night, and we're talking. I mean, we're getting as political as you're gonna get on a Friday night before you go out. But this one girl, she says, "Oh, I really support the Green Party," and she's vegan, right? And I just I blurt out I cannot stand the Green Party. How could you support the Green Party, right? Yeah. I watched this debate. I watched the McLean's debate and whatnot, and I don't even remember her name now. Who's the leader of the Green Party? I hate them that much. I don't even know.
I should know her name too because she's out by me. She's out in Victoria, right? She's elected out with me, but yeah, I forget her name. I've sent her email when I forget her name, but yeah, go on. I've met her actually. I met her for the first time 15 years ago. So, but I still don't remember her name. But yes, the lady from the Green Party.
Yeah. So I'm just watching this debate, and I don't know. I just found it very. Well, did you watch the McLean's debate to begin with?
No, but I just mentioned a long time ago, I think you haven't seen on my YouTube channel, I did make videos drawing attention to and hating on the Green Party because their position on agriculture is they want the government to give more subsidies to meat and dairy agriculture. And especially dairy, where they're we support Canada's milk farmers, therefore vote for the Green Party, unlike the Liberals or the Conservatives. We really want to give more money to Canada's dairy industry. It was surreal. But, meat also. Both meat and dairy. That's the Green Party's position. And they shamelessly flog that. They're proud of their position on it. But you take it. What were you going to say? You hate on the Green Party in your own terms. Don't let me put words in your mouth.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, just the blatant, disregard. They never seem to ever mention animal agriculture. Just the fact that they don't even in terms of eradicating it. Right. They have no interest in that. It's funny, just kind of something unrelated, just the McLean's debate that I don't know when it was, like November or something. And people tend to talk about Canadian politics. I was reading all these articles about how it's like American politics in comparison is just like this circus, it's this show, it's entertainment, which I suppose it is. But, I'm watching this debate on TV, and it's just like Trudeau's response to Harper is just, nobody believes you, Harper. Right. Like, these are literally his rebuttals. And I'm just watching this, and I'm like, how is this any better than what's going on in America right now? How is that in any way, shape, or form like an intelligent response? Yeah. Just constantly talking over Harper and telling him that he's a liar and that no one believes him. Like, he's just appealing to people who blindly hate Harper, because anyone who's intelligent would notice that that's just really weak. How is that at all a good argument? So I guess I just find the political landscape in general, from what I see on media, to be very...
That's our national pastime in Canada, is pretending we're better than the Americans. And there are so many issues on which it's really a huge stumbling block. Like, you try to talk to white Canadians about First Nations, and really very often the first thing they say to you is, "Oh, but at least we're better than the Americans on that." Yeah. And you have to, like, I've had situations where you just blank the person. It's like, have you visited a Navajo reservation? Like, have you actually compared how residential schools worked for the Navajo versus the Cree? Like, are you actually making the claim? Because in my honest opinion, I really only studied the Canadian side of it, but I have done some brief comparison where you look at the Americans. I think the Americans have been better to their still existing Indigenous people than Canadians. We're really just talking about the most recent 100 years. And, you can come down to specific policies and you can talk about it. But on so many issues, and, I've seen that with the meat production, where the only thing Canadians have to say to you is, well, it's a problem, but at least we're better than the Americans. On ecology, what have you, this is the big distorting bias that comes into it. But the other is just the left versus right factionalism. And in Canada, within my lifetime, the left-wing versus right-wing thing has been, really quite meaningless. Everyone wants lower taxes, okay? I mean, it's like, this is not really a debate worth having. But, I saw really two different Green parties within Canada. Green Party of Ontario, and when I was in Ontario, basically the federal Green Party also exists there. The National Green Party really is the Green Party of Ontario. They don't have a separate existence. And then in Saskatchewan, I got to see a really interesting drama play out with the Green Party there. But in terms, the Green Party in both places, it's like veganism, like what we were saying about veganism before. They had really recruited people who used to be cult members, either of a communist cult or of a Hindu cult or of some other kind of cult. But you got a lot of extreme left-wingers. And then if the party did anything that wasn't anti-capitalist enough by their definition, they would stand up and quit or cause a commotion or what have you. So you had a situation where really it's like you're not acting as a Green Party. You're acting as a crypto-communist party with a kind of layer of green paint over it. And you can't do any of the pragmatic things that really create respect and constituency for a small party in Canada over time. There is a role for that. And I'll just mention apropos, I don't know if this will change the topic or keep it the same, but, in Saskatchewan, one of the crucial events, because they had over 5 years, say, they were doing some small activism that involved negotiation with the government. Advocacy, I guess you'd say. And one of their members, who is diagnosed with a serious mental disorder, I forget which one, I may not have known. I forget whether it was schizophrenia, but it was something at that level. But to all accounts, he was a nice guy, and he really did put in a lot of time volunteering for the Green Party. He had a psychotic episode at Parliament, inside the Parliament building, and he took off all his clothes, and I assume was, nattering incoherently, what have you. He had disassociated episode where he didn't know where he was and what have you. But he wasn't trying to rape someone or anything, but he got naked for no reason. And he was banned from the Parliament building, and there was a very real question of whether or not he'd be charged with a crime. And 10 years of hard work in the Green Party went to waste because of one unreliable person. And, I've had recently within Patreon, I think you're not a member of my Patreon group, right? I've had discussions with that because, I talked to some other people. White Pariah, she's a big advocate for mental health, mental illness issues, and what have you. And I am honest in saying to people, no, when you put together a real political organization with real responsibilities and real consequences for your actions and money, fundraising, which I've just done. I raised $6,500 in one day. It's ridiculous. But, I've now done fundraising for veganism. One unreliable person. Again, to all accounts, he was a nice guy. People said he was a really caring, nice guy. But he's unreliable. One bad person does discredit your movement. That's another reason why I find it kind of a bit of a bad joke. Like, oh, let's all beat up on Saoirse Morava or something for discrediting veganism. I'm interested in talking about, the real problems of discrediting veganism. This is only one type or one issue, but that also leads us to thinking about politics and friendship and cooperation in a very different way, short-term and long-term, when you recognize the fragility of that and how much you need from the people you cooperate with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, Saoirse is certainly just one of many who's doing the exact same thing. Yeah. So, just the amount of heat she's getting, I found it a bit ridiculous because this guy, it was just happenstance that she just happened to do a video on him and he just happened to see it or whatever. I don't even know. I don't really care. No. But it could have been any big YouTuber, a really big one who decides to choose any radical vegan on YouTube to then expose, right? Yeah. It wasn't just Saoirse. It is kind of a problem with YouTube in general. So I thought the response that she got from all these vegans, it was kind of, like you said, kind of missing the nail, right?
Right. Yeah.
No one was really talking. I guess some people were, but I thought she got a little bit too much hate when she's just doing what she's been taught to do by, freely, essentially.
Right. Well, look, I mean, I didn't know you were Canadian until a couple days before this conversation. When we were arranging to talk on Skype, I was like, oh, you're in Canada. But I mean, this is also the biased sense of it. People come on YouTube and say, oh, you should stop messing around. You should be a real activist like me. You should do what I'm doing because that's real activism. And I'm unusual in many ways on YouTube, but one of the ways in which I'm unusual is that on the one hand, I do not portray what I'm doing now as real activism. On the other hand, I do not tell other people to do what I do. I don't think we need another 10 people doing what I do on YouTube. And if they do, they can't reach a bigger audience than I do. I said recently, I think it's wonderful, that video I had talking to the lawyer in Washington, D.C. about, getting politically organized. 2,000 people watched that. It's a huge number to me. It's never going to reach a mass audience. So people are playing this YouTube game. If you want to talk about legit activism, take a look at the channels that are doing legit activism, and you'll realize, okay, maybe 500 people are going to watch your video. Maybe it'll take you years to build up an audience of only 500 people because that's nothing for you. But on the other hand, what I am doing is actively trying to organize real activism for the future. And this is why I'm totally biased and prejudiced. Oh, you're Canadian? It's pathetic, but legally speaking, so, Mod Vegan is also in Canada and is not insane, as far as I know. She seems, we've talked and so on. And, I've said to her openly, look, it wouldn't matter if I hated you. I want to be your best friend because if you want to actually create a legal foundation in Canada, have a legally registered charity, if you want to do lobbying, and again, lobbying on education policy, you can get big results with a very small amount of time and money. But this is why I say, in some ways, I'm the least Canadian person in the world. I'm not a nationalist, and so much of my adult life has been in Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, China, Taiwan. It's been outside of Canada. But the Canadian passport is the only passport I've got. So whether it's you or Mod Vegan or the Light Twins, I was delighted. I didn't know those guys had a political bone in their body. Tons of people have thanked me. They say, hey, the Light Twins, when they did that interview with you, that's the first time I knew those guys were really motivated about political, organization. Yeah. They are, but I'm like, great, So, yeah. So in terms of putting together a foundation for something in some point in Canada, long term, this is another inequality. Yeah. If you were the same person, but you're an American citizen living in California, I'm a lot less interested because legally I need to work with other Canadians, right?
Yeah, totally. Just about the improving the education of Buddhism, education system or whatnot. Right. I hear that, and that is quite optimistic. But I'm thinking of the reform, although I guess this would be optimistic as well, the reform that we had in Ontario about sex education. You must have heard about it. It was a big story how people were getting upset that we're going to start in the first grade and teach first graders about gender. or whatever. I think that is in particular, that's great. Like that gives me a lot of hope because sex education, that's a very sensitive subject, right? Buddhism, like you said, a lot of people don't really know anything about it. They don't really have any emotional reaction towards it. So I just hear the sex ed reform that occurred here in Ontario, and people were complaining about it, of course, but it happened.
Well, right, but I mean, I think the contrast to England is also significant because in England, technically, it's not a secular country. The Anglican Church is part of the government, and the government supports the Anglican Church, so you get a different kind of opposition. Yeah. It's just in England, nobody takes the Anglican Church seriously, but they sit in Parliament. They sit in the House of Lords. Yeah, you get a different kind of resistance because in England they still really have an elite who are religious in a way that almost nobody in Canada is. I think our elite is less religious than the poor. I think in Canada, if you hang out with rich people who go to cottages and snort cocaine and do water skiing. Rich people in Canada don't believe in much anymore. Anyway, you see how prejudiced I am against Canadian culture, but I'm stuck with it. It's my only passport. I have to do vegan activism in Canada. I can't do it anywhere else. What the hell was I saying?
Yeah, a bit of a tangent. We were talking about education, reform, veganism.
Right. But and the other thing is, so when I was in Germany this time, the German language, in every language, figuring out if something is vegan or not is a different struggle. But they had made reforms relatively recently, because I can remember being in Germany a number of years ago and then now. And one of the simple reforms they made was having words like egg and milk in bold, bold font, even when it's in the middle of a compound word. Because in German, you can have a long word, and in the middle, there are two letters, E-I, I, and it really means egg. So it's some kind of ingredient derived from egg protein. It's a long word, desiccated egg powder, something or another. But in there's I, which is their word for egg, and they put that in bold. And it makes a huge difference. And it may not sound political, but really it is. And by contrast, they have other words where the word egg appears, but it actually doesn't mean egg. So again, this is a difference from English. If something says egg, it means egg. And then it's not in bold. So their word for protein is literally egg white, but it doesn't mean egg white. It just means protein. So these kinds of struggles, Canada, don't do it today. Do it someday when you have a really long attention span. But on any of these issues, if you look up our debates in the Senate, the Hansard, tends to be in the Senate. You get these debates, not in the normal Parliament. Nobody knows what they're talking about. They don't have a great depth of expertise and passionate, well-informed, well-researched people. And then when you get to City Hall, Senate is the highest level. You look through the Hansard to City Hall. If any of these issues are being discussed in government, it's just not the case that they're inundated with, actionable proposals for how to make the world a better place from people who know their stuff and can back it up and what have you. And that's true, across the board. Canadian Senate, I remember looking up a debate about what Canada's policy in Myanmar was. And all these people in the Canadian government, none of them know as much about the politics of Myanmar as I do. I'm not the world's greatest expert on Myanmar. But, you're reading that and it's depressing. So, those discussions that go on, again, whether it's about nutrition, education, there's so many headings under which veganism can be a struggle. I think, you're going to find that there's not that much resistance to the other side. There's my optimistic statement for the day. And also remember, Canada is not the United States. This stereotype of having enormous corporations influencing government and this stuff, we don't have those corporations in Canada. In Ontario, the most powerful corporation when I was there controlling the government was Domtar. Great evil name. Sounds like a villain from a comic. Domtar. Domtar is a pulp and paper company. And I was, in terms of my ecology, I was really interested in trying to get involved with more habitat conservation, forest, tree type stuff. Then you're going up against Domtar. They own the government. That's the corporation that's government. But, we don't have the headquarters for Monsanto or these other great, the kind of presumed villains that oppose veganism. So in some ways, And again, for my life, I don't know. It's possible. Like the whole rest of my life will be in Canada. It's possible, and it's also possible I'll be living in Myanmar or Hong Kong or somewhere else. Pretty soon after I finish that diploma, because I'm gonna have to make hard decisions. So yeah. Okay, great first conversation with you. By the way,
Yeah.
I feel like we're old friends.
I mean, this is 3 hours or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, if you didn't find anything worthy for your podcast, that's cool. It was nice talking to you either way.
It is great talking to you. I'm happy to promote you on my channel to my small, audience of extremely cynical and sophisticated vegans. It's a small audience, but it's a good audience. You know what I mean? Those are the viewers you want. You want the à-bas-le-ciel viewers coming over. But no, for me, as I've just been saying, it's not really about that long term. Something I've said. I said this recently to Cheetah. Cheetah has never been to college. Cheetah is a college student now. But in the past, he never went to college. I said to Cheetah, look, when you graduate from college, like a normal college student like you or something, I ask people, when you graduate from college, do you have 50 friends? If you say yes, you're lying. You're lying to me, you're lying to yourself. Like you might have 50 Facebook friends, but nobody at the end of college has 50 friends. And then how many of them do you really cling on to? The wonderful thing about what we're doing on YouTube, you could really have 50 friends, like 50 meaningful friends. In the same sense, like I really do have a meaningful friendship with Charles, with the Vegan Cheetah. It's not just about fame or money or something. And if I can really have a network of, if I have 5 people like that in my life, it's wonderful. But if you have 50, there's real strength in numbers and so on. And we just saw that from my rather pathetic position. I raised $6,500 in one day.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was
right.
Amazing.
Right. And it's not unprecedented. Erin Janis did something similar when she raised money to help one zebra and one donkey. She reached out to her viewers and had an avalanche of money come in. I forget if it was 48 hours or what, but she reached it right away. So that's a big contrast to other forms of humanitarian work, activism, what have you. And that really could be the basis for doing something very positive long term in the future.
Oh, I certainly hope so.
Cool.
I haven't mentioned this either, but both my parents are vegan, actually.
What? How long have they been
I
vegan?
converted them.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, sorry. Because I thought you were going to tell me you were born vegan or something. All right, Jesus. Okay.
No,
that changes my opinion of you. Okay, wow. So you converted your parents. Unbelievable. But look, it reminds me, I had fan mail recently. People hate me for using the word fan mail, but what the fuck? It's accurate. I had fan mail from a guy who was a medical doctor, and he was writing to me saying that he felt powerless and he couldn't make it. So he's a medical doctor who's vegan. I forget. I think he just recently started becoming vegan, so he's not yet 100%. But he's already, in principle, believes in veganism. And he was saying the same way so many YouTubers and teenagers do, that he feels so powerless over the world. I send people. I'll send you now. I'll send you a copy of my resume, my CV. But I have to write back to those people, and it's not false humility, and it's not bragging. But a lot of people assume I'm some kind of successful academic, and I've never been an academic. I'm never going to be. And it's like, no, look, I may be working at Starbucks in the future, and if so, you'll see it on my YouTube channel. I'll talk about it, I'll joke about it. It's not going to be a secret if I'm working at Starbucks. But it's no, I'm not saying this to insult you, but look, here's my CV, here's the reality of my work experience and my background. I understand that you feel powerless. But the fact that you're a medical doctor, the fact that you have a home, you know what I mean? You actually have advantages over me that you may be blind to, you may not be seeing. I talk to other people, they're an architect or whatever. But anything, just you have a steady job, you can make a difference. So this is something I talked about a relatively long time ago on my channel, the stuff about direct action everywhere, effective activism, protest. You can make a difference. And I guarantee there's a better way for you to make a difference than standing on the street and screaming at strangers. I guarantee it. You know what I mean? So yeah, whether you're a medical doctor, an architect, or if you just have a steady job that really provides you with a home and stability as a base of operations, different people can contribute in different ways. I've got a lot of illustrators and graphic designers, visual artists who are my fans. Hate the word fan, whatever. My viewers, and they really can contribute to a project in a different way from somebody else. Before I asked you if you were in music, if you're a musician or a singer, the reason I'm asking is because that, again, you can contribute a different way or what have you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some people think I hate bikini models or something. I'm actually fine with that too. I think some people are bikini models, and their way to contribute to vegan activism probably is through bikini modeling. I'm against the delusion that everyone should be a bikini model.
Yes.
But still,
absolutely.
different people can contribute different ways, and medical doctors and so on, these are examples really taken seriously. Medical doctors, research scientists, you know, all these people I've been reaching out to and trying to talk to, yeah. Real potential for something positive to happen. But hell,
Absolutely.
obviously that changes your Christmas plans. The fact that your parents are vegan, that's really wonderful for you. So that's great. Yeah.
Like I mentioned, like how my background is like a Christian background. But,
Right.
my family, my father actually hates tradition, despite
okay.
being a religious man. So the holidays have never really been a big deal to us.
Okay, great.
So, like,
All right.
I'm the same way. I don't really care if I'm not with them for Christmas.
Well, anyway, look, that's wonderful because, I mean, you know, I remember I made a joke on the internet. This is before I had a YouTube channel, so it was just a joke in writing on the internet that got a ton of thumbs up and shares and likes and reactions because somebody wrote a question on the internet asking, like, well, like on the official day I decided to become vegan because they decided whatever, like July 1st, they were going to become vegan, you know, forever. There was a, you know, what do you actually do? Like, what do you do that day? What's the transition like? And my reply was, I said something along the lines of, well, it's traditional to have a screaming fight with your parents that ends with one side or the other saying, I don't even know who you are anymore at the top of their voice, then walking out of the room and slamming the door. You know, so I made this joke, but so many people related to it. So many people were writing back and saying, yeah, that's, you know, that was their experience or what have you. So, you know, obviously anything positive or even just neutral from your parents, you know, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
I'm
I
glad
hear
to
that.
Yeah.
That people have such bad experiences
Right.
with their parents. And, like, I don't know. Actually, my mom went vegetarian, and then she got me to go vegetarian, and then I went
Yeah.
vegan and made her go vegan, and then my dad went vegan afterwards. But so I didn't necessarily have a bad experience simply because my mom was already a vegetarian.
Right.
And I don't know. My parents are just generally speaking, you know, very, very chill, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So I consider myself very fortunate in that sense that I never had that family feud.
Right. Okay, look, I say, so this is midnight where you are, and it's noon where I am, so I got to go and get real food. I told you, I have no kitchen here, so I have to go out to
Yeah.
restaurants. But wonderful talking to you, and I can say the same
You
thing I
as
said before. I hope I still know you 5 years from now. I hope I still know you 10 years from now. And because you're Canadian, even if I hated you, I would really, really be trying to build this friendship because I think we can cooperate politically in the future and what have you. But whatever the future holds, you know, stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. It was nice talking to you.
Wonderful. Great to meet you.